Lena Torres rarely entertained the idea of dating. At 34, every minute of her life was scheduled. Board meetings at dawn, emails late into the night, and mornings filled with getting her 7-year-old daughter, Mia, ready for school. Romance didn't fit into her calendar, at least not anymore. So when her best friend, Clara, arranged a blind date, Lena almost canceled. Just one evening, Clara had begged. No deals, no deadlines. A man who might remind you what it feels like to breathe. Against her better judgment, Lena agreed. She arrived at the cafe, its soft amber lights spilling warmth against the rainy evening. Expecting to meet another high-powered executive, Lena wore a tailored navy suit, her diamond earrings understated yet impossible to miss. She stepped inside, scanning for the sharp suit and polished shoes she assumed her date would wear. Instead, a tall man in worn jeans and a clean but faded jacket rose from the corner table. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his hands rough as though used to physical labor. When he smiled, it wasn't with practiced charm but with quiet sincerity. "I'm Marco," he said, pulling out a chair for her. For a second, Lena's instincts screamed mistake. This couldn't be her date. Clara surely hadn't meant to pair a millionaire CEO with this man. A janitor, a handyman, she didn't know, but he wasn't her world. And yet, when Marco's gaze met hers, steady and unpretentious, Lena hesitated. There was no arrogance in his eyes, no calculation. Just a calm warmth she hadn't realized she missed. Taking a slow breath, Lena sat down. Perhaps it wouldn't hurt to stay, for one cup of coffee. The waitress set 2 steaming mugs of cappuccino on the table, the foam dusted with cocoa. Lena wrapped her hands around the cup, more for comfort than warmth. She still wasn't sure what to make of Marco. He didn't carry himself with the sleek confidence of the men she usually met. No tailored suit, no gold watch, no smooth rehearsed lines. And yet, there was something disarmingly grounded about him. "So, Lena," Marco began, his voice steady but unforced, "what's the last book you read for pleasure, not for work?" The question startled her. Men on dates usually asked about her company, her revenue growth, or her future expansion plans. She blinked, then admitted with a shy laugh, "Charlotte's Web. I read it with my daughter. She insisted I do all the voices." Marco grinned, his eyes lighting up. "That's a classic. You know, I used to love folding paper animals after reading it as a kid. Not very glamorous, but it made me feel like I could bring the story to life." Lena smiled despite herself. He didn't sound like he was trying to impress her, he just wanted to connect. They drifted into an easy rhythm. He asked what music she turned on after a long day, what food reminded her of home, whether she ever danced in the kitchen with Mia. Lena found herself laughing, genuinely laughing, as she described burnt pancakes and Mia's messy attempts at salsa dancing. When she finally asked about his work, Marco hesitated, his eyes dropping to the table. "I'm a janitor at the university. I keep the halls clean, fix what's broken. It's not anything people brag about." Lena waited for the usual flicker of disappointment to settle in her chest. But instead, she found herself leaning in, intrigued. There was no pretense in his words. Just honesty. For once, she wasn't the CEO under scrutiny. She was simply Lena, a woman enjoying a rare, unguarded moment. Their second meeting wasn't at a cafe but in the sunlit openness of the city park. Lena had hesitated to bring Mia along, worried her daughter would be shy or, worse, cold toward Marco. But to her surprise, Marco knelt on the grass the moment they arrived, carefully folding a napkin into the shape of a tiny crane. "This one's for you," he said softly, extending it to Mia. The little girl's eyes widened. She glanced at her mother, then at Marco, before tentatively reaching out. When the crane rested in her palm, she giggled, a sound so rare since her father left that Lena's chest tightened. Within minutes, Marco had Mia chasing him across the playground, laughter spilling into the air. Lena watched, stunned. Men with wealth and polished charm had courted her before, but none had ever bent down to see the world at her daughter's level. But the warmth of the afternoon couldn't erase reality. A week later, at a glittering gala, Lena made the mistake of inviting Marco as her guest. The ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, tuxedos, and designer gowns. Marco stood out instantly. His suit was neat but modest, his shoes not brand new. Whispers swirled around them. The CEO and him. Someone murmured near the champagne table. A janitor. She must be joking, another sneered. Lena felt their eyes burning into her back. For the first time since their date, doubt crept in. Could she really live in both worlds, hers and his, without losing one? Later that night, as they walked in silence, Marco finally spoke. I know I don't fit into your circle. I won't ever be like them. But I can promise you this, I'll never look at you as anything but Lena. Not the CEO. Just you. And somehow, those words mattered more than all the applause she ever earned in boardrooms. The rain had been falling for hours, drumming against Lena's office windows as she closed her laptop. The board meeting had been brutal, investors pressing for faster expansion, competitors undercutting her, and whispers that her personal life was becoming a distraction. By the time she stepped into the lobby, exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. Through the glass doors, she saw him. Marco stood outside in the storm, an old umbrella tilted against the wind. His jacket was damp, his hair plastered to his forehead, yet he smiled when he caught sight of her. You'll catch a cold, Lena murmured as she pushed open the door. Maybe, Marco said with a small shrug, holding the umbrella over her instead of himself. But I figured you shouldn't walk alone in the rain. For a moment, Lena just stared at him. He didn't belong here, surrounded by gleaming cars and marble pillars, but in that instant, it didn't matter. His presence warmed her more than any luxury could. I don't fit in your world, Marco admitted quietly, his voice almost lost in the storm. But with you and Mia, I feel like I finally belong somewhere. If that's not enough, tell me now, and I'll walk away. The vulnerability in his eyes pierced through all her carefully built defenses. Her colleagues, investors, and rivals had always seen her as untouchable, the iron-willed CEO. But Marco saw her humanity, her weariness, her need for something real. She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. Stay, she whispered, her voice firm despite the tremor in her chest. I don't care what they think. With you, I'm not just a CEO. I'm me. And under the rain, as he pulled her close, Lena realized she hadn't chosen against her world. She had chosen the one thing money could never buy, love that was true.